Hi everyone, this is Covid, your host at Beyond the Code by Typo. I am back with another episode and a new guest who is passionate and a powerful engineering leader. She has an experience of 20 plus years, currently serving as an executive coach and a mentor. She's all about supporting women in tech. She runs her own podcast, Women to a Leader. She's coming up with season 2 of the podcast, which is Women of Color, where you can find her talking about different diverse cultures and women growing as a leader there. Welcome to the show, Limor. Great to have you here.
Hi, COVID. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here today.
Perfect. So, all right, I'll quickly tell you about the format of the show, Limor. We start with a quick fireside chat, and then we jump into the experiences that you have had as an engineering leader. So, this fireside chat is to know more about you outside of work a little bit, some interesting things about you. So, are you ready for some quick questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So, let's get started. I have been reading a lot about the tech blogs, the tech bloggers who have been producing a lot of content, and you being one of those. I just really wanted to understand what inspires people like you who are writers to come up with writing. I have this thing which I really need to know and understand because I someday want to write a book, whatever I'm learning from here. So yeah, that's the first question for you.
Absolutely. And I want to write a book as well, to be honest with you. It's on my plan as well. So actually, when I grew up, I thought that I couldn't write. It started with a teacher that actually told me that I'm not a good writer. I mean, I was very good in STEM, math, physics, chemistry, but I got kind of a traumatic experience from writing. It was traumatic because I got negative feedback and also, although I took a tutor, and that was like the only tutor I took in high school just for writing, my teacher was always criticizing me. And that left, an impact for years to come that, I may not be able to write. But what happened, the interesting thing that happened, that I wanted to express myself. I wanted to share my thoughts. I wanted to share with others, all the insights I had, and I actually started writing.
Okay.
And I found out that first I really enjoy it, and then I'm not that bad. It's not that terrible. And the great part nowadays, because everyone can be a writer, right? Everyone can write a book, everyone can start a blog. You don't have to be Shakespeare, you don't have to be like super duper excellent. Just express yourself, be genuine, express and share what you have and do it. Everyone can do it.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing actually. Like you just have to have that feeling of expressing your thoughts. You probably can perfect it over a period of time, but you don't have to fear starting off. You just have to have that feeling that you want to share what you have in your mind. Perfect. Limor, I think that's quite enlightening for me at least. All right, moving on to the next question. What advice would you like to share with young joinees in tech?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I'll start with a quick story. So when I started my first software development job, I was still, in university, and I started like a part-time job. And the experience was terrible because from multiple reasons. First, I had a very, very unsupportive manager. She was actually a woman. My first manager was a woman, but she was very strict. She was not nice. I guess she felt like she needed to keep a very clear distance. She was not supportive. I really did not enjoy working with her. The second thing is that I was working on ancient things like on COBOL, on mainframe, and I hated every second. It was clear to me that while it was comfortable for, while I was at school, because it didn't require much challenge from my side, it wasn't gonna last. As soon as I'm gonna graduate, I cannot keep doing what I was doing. What I did was that I went to the manager above my manager back then, and I had a conversation with him. And I told him, listen, I really like the company. I would like to stay here. but I cannot continue working with that, type of work. That's not what I signed up for. I want to move. I mean, back then, Java was the shiny new technology, new language, and there was a team that actually wrote Java applets. Yes, I'm that old. So, and I told him, listen, I mean, that's the team I want to join right after I graduate and move to a full-time job. Otherwise, I mean, I just cannot see myself staying here. So I wasn't threatening per se, but I was making clear that, I mean, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? He listened. I mean, I was lucky, right? I mean, he could not listen, but he listened and he moved me to that team. And long story short, I would say that the advice I would share is that even if you're just starting out, appreciate yourself and what you are worth. Know what you want and don't be afraid to ask what you want, even if you're just starting out.
Yeah, I think I can relate to this feeling. And when I had joined my first job, I was always under this impression that something should not go wrong, people should not perceive me wrong, and on top, like, the most important thing was the managers, the leads should not perceive me wrong in any way. So I used to not express much, and I couldn't be genuine there. And it definitely affected me in a negative way rather than in a positive way. So that's a very good piece of advice, that you have to be fearless in a reasonable way. Like, you have to be polite and respectful, of course, for others, but you cannot be just listening and not expressing your views, not being genuine there. So yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice, Limor. Thank you for sharing that experience, by the way.
My pleasure.
All right. I know you are super passionate, super powerful. I get that vibe. And I just want to understand, what's your daily dose of energy? Like, what keeps you going every day when you wake up? What is it that pushes Limor to go on?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another great question. So I like going to the gym. You see, my hair is a little bit wet still because I got back from the gym about an hour ago. So my daily dose of energy is just running. I actually discovered running, when I was in university. So I was going to a gym there, but I stopped for years. When I got married and started a family, I have 4 children. So, it was hard, and I kind of was very inactive. I lived a very sedentary lifestyle. At the beginning of my 40s, I really wanted to change that. I couldn't believe I will be able to run. I had those limiting beliefs. It's impossible for me to run, but I actually worked on breaking those beliefs and started running, and found out that it's a great source of energy for me. It motivates me. It gives me not just motivation, but a lot of strength, a lot of joy. So that's kind of my daily dose, either running or just doing weightlifting at the gym, meeting with people, that I already know. That's what keeps me going.
Cool. All right, Limor. Thank you for this fireside chat. And I think we got to know a lot more than we already did about you. So that really helps. Now, moving on to the main section, wherein we want to talk about a lot of things, but we'll keep our curiosities in our pocket and try to restrict it to a few questions. Can I get started with you there?
Absolutely.
All right. First of all, it's already out there, and I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart the kind of push you are giving to the women in tech. Really, hats off to you. We know that this journey is different for a woman in the tech industry. How do you think it is different from the male counterparts, and what you really think should be done about it?
Multiple reasons. I mean, first of all, we are still outnumbered. So there are fewer women in tech compared to men. When I started my career, for years, I was the only woman working, surrounded by men in my team. I was the only woman. It wasn't terrible, don't get me wrong. And I worked with wonderful men, very supportive. I learned a lot from, also very supportive managers. But I felt different. Felt like, okay, I'm not exactly the same. Sometimes it was harder for me to feel a sense of belonging, right? Because the men, they wanted to do different things, to hook up after work, and maybe not everything interested me. And so it's about belonging and feeling like I belong, I'm worthy, I'm like the rest of them, men tend to be very competitive, ego-driven. Not a bad thing. I'm not saying that negatively, but it's like, okay, I'm better than you. Like they have this tendency to really thrive from competition. I don't know if you've seen that, but men has this tendency.
Definitely, that's there. It's just that I'm keeping my thoughts to myself and listening to you.
Yeah, and for women, at least for me, less so. I thrive by growing and becoming a better version of myself every single day. I don't care much about how I am compared to others rather than to me. And that, like having those different mentalities, it's sometimes difficult because I don't want to compete with someone else. I don't want to prove anyone that I'm better. I don't need to necessarily. That can create a lot of uncomfortable feelings, sometimes confidence issues when people make comments, not in a mean way, but just that's the way to communicate because they want to show how better they are. So a lot of more differences, women, create life that comes with its own set of challenges. So I think that the mentality and the way of communication and the way of work is kind of very, very different. And the fact that we are outnumbered.
Yeah. But what do you think exactly can we do about it? Actually, that's something which is a long-term, long-held problem. What do you think today? I think that ratio has definitely changed from the time probably when you joined in as a leader or a woman in tech. Now it has changed. What according to the current scenario can be done around it to solve this problem?
I think, first of all, it starts with awareness. Even if you have a team that most of the team are men and there are fewer women, just take that into awareness that how can I make the women in my team feel like they belong, feel comfortable? What can I do to support them? Be sensitive to them, to what you say or don't say, I remember I was deeply, deeply demotivated and hurt by just code review comments that people wrote me because they wrote it in a way that was not sensitive enough. It was like very blunt. Again, it's not a bad intention, but it can really hurt confidence of someone when you make a code review that is maybe you're right, or maybe you're trying to make a point, but it can really hurt the confidence of a woman, or even what you share in a meeting and how you talk. If you're telling someone you're wrong, if you use strong words, right? When a woman starts to express an opinion and you kind of contradict her or maybe talk over her, that can really hurt her confidence. So just awareness and being a little bit more sensitive can go a long way.
Yeah, I think so. That could be the first step, right? Perfect. Anything else that you have felt in your journey as a woman was different and could have been done differently?
I wish I had more mentors in my career. When I started, I felt, as I said, I was always pushing myself forward, but I felt a lot of times confidence issues and whether I'm good enough. I think having more mentors could help me with acquiring knowledge, with learning better and faster, with feeling worthy, and probably advancing my career even faster than I did.
Do you think does the same problem exist right now for the women of this gen? Like right now?
Yes. But luckily, I think that there are, because, it's a completely different generation. There are a lot of online communities for women.
There are influencers like you who are now helping people. So
there are influencers like me, that's true. There are communities. I think that mentorship, sponsorship, all of those things that I didn't even know existed when I started are kind of the norm. And I volunteer, by the way. I volunteer in organizations, in women-related mentoring organizations. So yes, there is still a need, but I think that there is more awareness, both from the women's side and also, there are different communities and organizations that support women, both paid and unpaid, by the way, which makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. It is critical. It is very important to have a mentor, be it a male or a female. But how did you find it difficult for a female to find a mentor at that time? Like, again, is this just because of the gender difference, or is it in general like women don't have the tendency to like go up to a male mentor and talk to them? What exactly is that?
I think that back then I didn't even think about that I didn't even think that I may need one. Even the word mentor was not something top of mind for me. So I didn't even think. I was occasionally asking, people for help, right? Oh, can you look at something? Or can you help me? But I always felt uncomfortable. I don't know if this is a generic women thing, but I personally have a tendency that I'm always happy to help others. I feel less comfortable asking for help. And I think that's like the main maybe barrier, that if women feel uncomfortable asking for help, eventually that hurts them. I was afraid of asking, afraid or uncomfortable, and also was worried whether asking for help is going to be seen as a sign of weakness. Maybe I'm not as good, because I don't know something. Is it okay to tell my men counterparts that I don't know something? That I haven't heard of a term? Like, if I'm new, and I was new in many teams in technologies that I didn't know, and like, is it okay to say, I have no idea what you're talking about? You need a certain strength and confidence to be able to say that.
Makes sense. But I think that problem of insecurity even lies with the men. I think
absolutely
even more there sometimes because of the alpha ego and that we carry. So yeah, I totally relate to that. But yes, acknowledging it and overcoming it, and then probably finding a mentor is the right way ahead. You just mentioned people have to be more sensitive when there is a woman in the team and try to be adjusting and offering help. One more thing I realize right now, it's biologically also it's a very different journey, right? Like, we can give birth to babies, right? Unfortunately. But that is a time when I know a woman has to choose between work and personal life, right? And I'm sure you have had that point of time in your journey also. How did you go through it? What's your piece of advice as a mother and a women leader to the aspiring women leader?
Wow, that's an incredible question. So first of all, I am a mother of 4 children. And my oldest is 19, and I have a 16-year-old, and my youngest, they're twins, they're 13. And I worked throughout my career. So it is possible. I worked and I advanced my career. And children are not a barrier. It depends what you prefer, and what, it's very personal. I would say that it was not easy for me, and as you said, choosing. It shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't need to choose between career and family, because men don't have to, right? I mean, there's a mother and there's a father. Why should there be a difference? I know, yes, we give birth. Yes, we stay with the babies a little bit, but why should there be a difference? And there were times in my life, actually there was a time before I was planning my second child, that I was very unhappy at my work. And I was debating with myself and with my husband, what should I do? Whether should I leave and find another job and start someplace else, or should I stay and expand the family? My husband was very supportive, and he told me that's my choice to make. But why would I need to make that choice? If I was a man, that wasn't the question. The man would leave and find another job and extend the family. But a woman, if I'm planning to expand, I felt uncomfortable even interviewing for a company, knowing that I may be pregnant or maybe pregnant soon. And why should it be that way? It shouldn't. And I do see a change. The good thing, I do see a change, but not frequent enough and not enough, that employers sometimes, even hire women knowing that they are pregnant, talk more freely about it and say, that's not a problem. Join here, start, and then go take care of your baby and come back. So I do see some employers do that, but I guess what I would like to say is don't look at that as a barrier for employer sides, for manager side, and try to be more open-minded. Yeah. It's not like a problem. It's natural cycle of our lives, right? I mean, expanding the families, and women, we are very capable. We are capable of doing so many things, taking care of our kids and our careers and doing everything. And we do it very well. And we know how to manage our time and be very, very effective. So trust us that we know what we are doing, and don't treat us as like, oh, she's having a baby, so she cannot do that.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I respect my parents, but I have a little more respect for my mother, because I genuinely feel the kind of like it's a naturally built thing, and it is hard physically and mentally, and you still fight through it. So you are better warriors. Maybe you are the gladiators. The hard reality in the industry is people seek profits, and when it comes to work, people forget. Like, we need to be sensitive towards such things. But I wish with this messaging, with these kind of thoughts, we are able to change a few more lives.
Absolutely.
All right, that was really intense and interesting. Let's move on to something that I think the audience would also love to know. Like, coming to the core work thing, like, how do you deal with situation of fast changing technology in your engineering team? So basically, what kind of challenges you face? How do you deal with those challenges? Can you just give us a few examples?
Absolutely. So as I said, right, I started with the story that I started with COBOL and I moved to Java. I didn't know anything about Java. Nothing. And it wasn't like today that you have so many online trainings and courses and so easy to learn something new. I just had to learn it basically by myself. There are some books, yes, but I had to learn for myself and ask a lot of help, right? I mean, be willing to ask for help. I was joining a team of super smart people, very talented and much more experienced than I am. So don't be afraid to ask for help, I guess, and be always willing to learn. And then I moved from, as I said, I started with Java applets and then moved to backend, to Java Enterprise Edition. It was back then in infancy. It was the hot new thing. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to learn. We are constant learners. Technology changed so fast. And if you are not willing to adapt and to learn, you will stay behind. You'll stay behind, I'll tell you that. I took a challenge, when I moved to Sun Microsystems. Not at the beginning, but after about a year, I joined a team that did real-time Java. So I actually had to dig into the virtual machine itself and handle with real-time threads. So, I'm not saying I'm the bravest and smartest, but I wasn't afraid of trying, of getting into very, very uncomfortable situations. So just keep on evolving and learning. I mean, never be afraid of a challenge. Be willing to learn and grow, stay up to date, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Perfect. Now, let's say as an engineering leader or an engineering manager, you're working on a project and you feel that this new technology would be more supportive to the requirements of the business. And you have to take this hard call of maybe branching out and working on this piece. Before you do that, this can go both ways. Like, it can become a problem in the fast-paced growth of a company, right? They are adopting a new technology, then you have to skill up and do things. When you take this call, what all considerations come into your mind? How do you lay out that structure that, okay, now we have made a conscious choice, made a conscious decision that this is the right thing or the right technology to go forward with? How do you do that?
I think you start with first what you're trying to build. What do you need? What technology to use? I think you need to assess, what is out there, maybe what other companies are doing, what is industry standard, be always, on top of what's going on, of the trends, and choose a technology that can provide you with solutions to the problems you need in the best and fastest way. And a lot of times engineers are married to something, right? Because that's what they know. So I had engineers that wanted to use a certain database just because that's what they know. Is this the right choice? Maybe not always. So ask yourself, I'm just taking a database as an example. Am I choosing it just because I know it? or I have some favoritism for this, or is it really the right choice for what I need? So make a list. Those are the requirements, and consider several options. It's always good to consider multiple options before making a decision, not just one. Try to remove the bias. Make it more data-driven rather than opinion-driven.
Yeah, I think getting rid of that bias automatically opens your mind, and then get down to the points where you know that, okay, this is beneficial for the business. This is what we need in the next 6 months as a product. So then you start thinking that way. Otherwise, I think if you go by the gut, if you go by the instinct, then of course you would do something that you already know. So yeah, it's very important to get rid of that bias and then take a decision. Perfect. Next thing that I would like to ask you, for anyone, how should one progress in the career in tech? Like how one can make the best choices for them? And especially, I would love to hear a perspective again on the women in the tech industry. Like how should one progress in the career, and how should they make the best choices for them?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer because it's very generic. Because I would say, first, you need to be deliberate about what you want in your career. What interests you, what you're passionate about, how do you see yourself in a few years? I didn't always know that. I remember when I was promoted to a staff engineer at Sun, that was when the career kind of progression was split between management and IC track. And, I was on the IC track. My manager decided that, that's the right next step for me. But I actually started doubting whether that's what I wanted. Do I want to become a specialist? Do I want to continue being a software developer for the entire career? And I realized that no, I didn't, and I wanted to become a manager. It took me several years to do that just because I wasn't really thinking about that strategically. So be strategic and then find opportunities to build the skills that you need in order to move forward towards the direction you want. Whether it's learning new technologies, like I had a client who wanted to move to machine learning and artificial intelligence. So they knew what I wanted. So now it's about, okay, how do I learn? How do I find opportunities to meet people with that knowledge, build a network, contribute to open source, whatever. I mean, just you have to be deliberate about what you want and start building a plan towards that.
Makes sense. So having a clarity on what we exactly need and where we want to be, based on that, the choices should be made. Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. This is my last question to you. Now you have been coaching and mentoring multiple engineering teams and engineering leaders. How do you define the success of an engineering team, and how do you measure it? How do you make sure that while you're thriving for success, you're taking care of the developer well-being also, you're taking care of their experience, so that at the end of the day, your team is happy and motivated to do whatever you want to do as a team?
Yeah, so there are multiple things, right? It's about culture, motivation, and all those soft things. And there are productivity, effectiveness, and those things that you want to measure. I think about the soft areas, the motivation, it's about connecting with people. It's about caring for them. It's about knowing how to ask the right questions, constantly being interested in them and their career aspirations, what interests them, what they want to do, what they like doing, what they're good at, and helping them thrive and building those connections. About the team, whether they're productive or not, there are different areas to look at that. So you can look at quality, you can look at reliability, there are different aspects. The development speed, how predictable you are as a team. And the best way to know that is to measure and look at data. So like bare minimum, like when you run a team, use a tool, could be Jira, whatever, and start estimating your work, story points, whatever you want, doesn't matter, whatever works. But start, estimating, and then compare how much time it actually took to you to deliver versus, what you thought. Do retros and constantly improve. Because you want to see how good you are with estimating, how predictable you are as a team, I also, always looked at what was not planned. What kind of work did we do? And I was forcing engineers to put in Jira, I kid you not, tags of this was not like, I don't remember the tag they used, but like, this is something new that came up. Because it was important, and I explained to them, always explain the why. I explained, that's not because I want to spy on you, but it's because I want us as a team to understand what are the things we haven't expected and how much buffer do we need to take to those unexpected things that will come up, right? Eventually, we cannot avoid all of them. Maybe some of them we can. And then you have to measure things like mean time to deliver, mean time to recover, all those, measurements that you can do with different tools to know how effective you are as a team. How fast can you develop a new feature? How fast can you find a bug? How fast can you recover from an incident? So you have to measure all those things and constantly strive to be better.
Makes sense. This really helps. And with that, I think we have come to the end of our show today. I would have loved to talk more on few topics that I'm really interested in, but in the interest of time, we'll have to close here. Any parting advice for our audience?
Parting advice, I would say, based on all I said here, just continuous learning and growing. It's a journey. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. Take challenges and ask for help. It's part of growth.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Limor. It was really a pleasant experience having you here.
Thank you so much, COVID. It's been a pleasure.